Hello everyone, welcome to our School at Home class in English grade 7. We are in the fourth quarter of our set of lessons and I hope everybody will be delighted in learning today with lesson number 6. Lesson number 6 covers types of conflicts. Today's lesson's objectives are: number 1, differentiate between types of conflict. Number 2, identify the main sources of conflict. And number 3, use content-specific language to describe conflict. For our pretest, read each scenario, then write whether the conflict is internal or external. Number 1. A young African-American girl attending a white elementary school at the onset of the civil rights movement. The correct answer is external. Number 2. A farmer trying to get his scared animals out of a barn that was struck by lightning and has caught on fire. The correct answer is external. Number 3. A policeman comes face to face with a criminal who killed his father. The correct answer is external. Number 4. A boy tries to tame a wolf cub as a pet, but it proves uncontrollable more than he had ever imagined. The correct answer is internal. Number 5. A boy wins a full scholarship to college, and he can't decide whether or not he should go or stay home and work to help support his sick mother who was abandoned by his father several months ago. The correct answer is internal. Let's have a recap. From the previous lessons, you have learned how to determine truthfulness and accuracy of the materials viewed. Let's be honest. Literature would be a little boring without conflict, as painful as it is to read about our favorite characters going through hardships. These struggles are necessary to keep us engaged, entertained, and keep on turning pages. What is conflict? Conflict gives a story meaning and motivation. It is a struggle between two different forces, opposing forces. There are two types of conflict in literature. The first one is the internal conflict, which is within the character's mind. Internal conflict can be described as a struggle between opposing forces of desire or emotions within a person. The second one is the external conflict, which is a conflict between a character and an outside force. We have different categories of conflict. Letter A, we have man versus nature, which is an external one. This type of conflict portrays a story's main character or characters against a natural force, such as a natural disaster, a fire, an aggressive animal, illness, or environmental issues. For example, we have tsunami in Japan, earthquake in Haiti, Hurricane Katrina, BP oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico. Letter B, we have man versus self, which is internal. The character struggles to overcome a fear, perhaps an addiction, emotional issues, or personal crossroads in life. This type of conflict can be indirectly shared by other characters as supporters or simply as witnesses. Internal conflict can include troubles with decision-making, personality traits, spirituality, or physical disabilities. For letter C, we have man versus man, which is external. This conflict is usually the protagonist dealing with the antagonist. The antagonist provides some form of conflict against the protagonist. The conflict can be physical or mentally stressful. And for letter D, we have man versus society, which is also external. In many stories, the protagonist battles an unjust form of government, culture, possibly a holiday or any society-based group. This could also include man versus church. For our guided practice, read each description and identify the categories of conflict. Number 1. Two boxers who were formerly friends compete for the championship belt. The correct answer is man versus man. Number 2. A young woman fights to gain admittance in an elite prep school that was only meant for boys. The correct answer is man versus society. Number 3. A group of colonists struggle to survive the winter in a strange land. The correct answer is man versus nature. Number 4. Students struggle against the urge to play video games rather than to do his homework. The correct answer is man versus self. And number 5. Two girls compete for the same role in the school play. The correct answer is man versus man. For activity 1, fill in the blank with a word that best completes the sentence. Number 1. A blank is a struggle between two or more individuals or groups. Number 2. A struggle between man and some force outside himself is called a blank. Number 3. Blank is a struggle that takes place within an individual. Number 4. The three types of external conflict are blank, blank, and blank. And number 5. Internal conflict is referred to as man versus blank. You are given 20 seconds to answer. Now, here are the answers. Number 1, man versus man. Number 2, external conflict. Number 3, internal conflict. Number 4, man versus man, man versus nature, and man versus society. And number 5, self. For activity 2, choose the letter of the response that best identify the type of conflict described. Number 1, Todd is trying to quit cheating. Letter A, man versus man. Letter B, man versus nature. And letter C, man versus himself. Number 2, Sherry and her sister are fighting over a toy. Letter A, man versus man. Letter B, man versus nature. And letter C, man versus society. Number 3, Mr. Smith challenged the fairness of the law. Letter A, man versus nature. Letter B, man versus society. And letter C, man versus himself. Number 4. Charles had to cross the Rocky Mountains alone. Letter A, man versus nature. Letter B, man versus society. And letter C, man versus man. And number 5, Sarah had to decide between babysitting her sister or going to the football game. Letter A, man versus nature. Letter B, man versus man. And letter C, man versus himself. Time's up. Here are the correct answers. Number 1, letter C. Number 2, letter A. Number 3, letter B. Number 4, letter A. And number 5, letter C. For our wrap-up, match the items on column A to their meanings on column B. For column A, we have number 1, struggle happens inside the character's head. Number 2, conflict happens between characters. Number 3, character struggles with natural forces. Number 4, a character's fight against social traditions or rules. Number 5, conflict is within the character's mind. And number 6, conflict between a character and an outside force. For column B, we have letter A, man versus nature. Letter B, man versus society. Letter C, internal conflict. Letter D, external conflict. Letter E, man versus self. And letter F, man versus man. Here are the correct answers. For number 1, we have letter E. Number 2, letter F. Number 3, letter A. Number 4, letter B. Number 5, letter C. And number 6, letter D. For a full grasp of what was discussed today, the visual representation below will show you the different types of conflicts. The first one, we have man versus self, which is an internal conflict. It is a struggle that happens inside the character's head. Example, when we are deciding whether or not to lie. Next, we have man versus man, an external conflict. This conflict happens between characters. Example, Harry Potter versus Voldemort. Next, we have man versus nature, another external conflict. The character here struggles with natural forces. Example, tornadoes, floods, and wild animals. And the last one is man versus society, which is also an external conflict. A character's fight against social traditions or rules. Example, when you fight for freedom, or Katniss versus the Capitol. For our valuing, read about Alex. He has a job interview in a few days. Write 3 more suggestions for him to solve his problems. Here are some of Alex's problems. I always stay up late and wake up late in the morning. I don't have directions to the interview location. I haven't had a haircut in a long time. My suit is pretty old. I don't know what questions to ask me at the interview, and I talk too much when I'm nervous. Here is one solution to his problem. You should go to bed early. Provide 3 more suggestions as directed. Let us now measure how much you have learned from today's lesson by answering this activity. Read each statement carefully. On the space provided, write true if the statement is correct and false if it is wrong. Number 1. Conflict is a problem, tension, or struggle between opposing forces. Number 2. External conflict is a struggle a character has within his mind or heart. Number 3. Man versus self is a struggle a character has within his mind, heart, or conscience. Number 4. Man versus man is a struggle a character has with an outside force of nature. Number 5. Man versus society is a struggle a character has between more than one person, society, or culture. You may now check your answers. Remember that learning is useless without observing proper values. So, be honest, always. Here are the correct answers. Number 1, true. Number 2, false. Number 3, true. Number 4, false. And number 5, true. After viewing and listening to this video lesson, do not forget to tell yourself this line. You're doing a great job. Goodbye and see you in the next